thanks very much for inviting me again here, because this is a really great opportunity to mix with all of you people and to be able to say something about the TREND Consortium. And we're very happy to be able to partner up with the RSDSA. Candy McGabe will show you tomorrow that we have a really nice study going on, which is funded by the RSDSA on patients' perspective with respect to recovery. So that's really an interesting new thing for us, and we're happy to pursue this. With regard to the TREND Consortium, for those of you who do not know, well, it's an interdisciplinary consortium which is targeted at research on CRPS and using CRPS as a model for other trauma-related neuronal dysfunctions, which encompass, for instance, mechanisms such as inflammation and central sensitization, maladaptive neuroplasticity, vasomotor disturbances, which are a lot, of course. At the time when we started, which was in 2004, there were different initiatives in the Netherlands by itself doing research on CRPS. And at that time, it was so that although they were doing a lot of research, there was no communication between the different groups, which meant that all the different studies that you were performing were difficult to compare because, well, one used these kinds of inclusion criteria or diagnostic criteria for CRPS, the other one used the other. You used different measurement instruments, different designs, you name it. So the difficulty was there, not just in the Netherlands, but it was internationally the case. Now, at that time, we were really lucky that our government had money available for development of research consortia or knowledge consortia, which we were at that time, and we bundled up all these different initiatives to form the TREND Consortium. And we immediately knew, based on the questions we had at that time, that we needed a comprehensive model to study CRPS, which included epidemiology, proteomic studies, trials, genetics, development of adequate measurement instruments in order to describe CRPS in a encompassing and a comprehensive manner. The different institutions which we thought were needed to be involved were medical centers, and then from different disciplines involving anesthesiologists, pain management, genetics, neurologists were involved, all departments, of course, genetics, biomarkers, biomarker companies, private companies, in order to be able to develop or further develop measurement instruments which were used. And not to say the least, the patient organization, the Dutch RSDSA, who has a strong influence on, well, the things we are pursuing within TREND. These groups collaborated and started out to in a collaborative approach to target CRPS. And we did that as standardized as possible by using, for instance, source documents for the different fields of research which we were pursuing. For instance, for trials, we agreed upon which diagnostic criteria to use, which kind of measurement instruments to use, which kind of designs to be used. For genetics, the same way in how we would collect genetic data for genetic analysis, same for biomarkers. So, and it was interactive in the sense that people conducting trials were gathering information for the genetic department, for the biomarkers, for the epidemiological studies. So it was translational from the beginning on. It was formalized in a management structure, and we used a consortium agreement in order to make, look at, be able to steer everybody in the direction where we thought that research was necessary. Well, did it help? We're now 8 years further on. I would be inclined to say yes. Looking from a scientific perspective, we published about 100 studies within TREND on CRPS, so that's quite substantial. Only on CRPS. We developed guidelines for multidisciplinary guidelines in the Netherlands, which were translated, which are readily available. We have a patient version of these guidelines for treatment based on the available evidence at that time. We're now updating these guidelines, all paid by the TREND Consortium. We have international partnerships, of course, with the RSDSA, but also in scientific sense. Tomorrow you will hear Candy McGabe talking about this, and for instance, with the Swiss group who have a long-lasting cohort study on CRPS. We work together with Norman Harden, you will see him on Saturday, developing the new diagnostic criteria for CRPS. We have a website which is approachable. It's in English as well, www.trendconsortium.nl. And we have a centralized database which includes about 200 patients, with 600 patients having, for which we have, for instance, data on that's where the jet lag starts in. Data on genetics, genetical profiling. So it's pretty substantial, I would say, and we will continue the TREND Consortium, of course, although our financing ends at the end of this year. But we were able to use the TREND Consortium as a vessel for partnership, but also for grant application, and it really works. And well, I can only, hearing from what's available here in the United States and in development, I see no limit with regard to the possibilities to start such a collaboration here as well. I have to say, of course, again, we had it easy. We had a lot of money to initiate this, and that always works. So, thank you.